saved the demon-possessed man, whose name was also named after Jesus. When he, the Holy One, saved the man whose name was called Bar-Jesus. And when Jesus's disciples tried to deliver him from the demons, and when the Romans' legion, the Romans' army, couldn't save the demon-possessed man, whose name was also named after the name of Jesus. And whom was the man that was living in the cemetery, when Elu'hym, whom is the sovereign one of heaven, came there and delivered him, and when Elu'hym made him whole, when the Elu'hym healed him, when he exorcised the demons, and when he permitted the demons them to enter into the pigs. Luke chapter 8 verse 22 through 40. Now it came to pass on a certain day, that he went with his disciples them to the country of the Gadarenes, and they sailed across the Gentile seas in their ship, and Elu'hym said unto them, Let us go over to the other countries on the side of the Gentile seas, to the countries of the Gadarenes, to preach about the holy mountain of Elu'hym, and the holy kingdom of Elu'hym. And he and his disciples went to visit the Gentiles. And they launched the ship, and they sailed across the lake, and they entered into the seas, and they went forth into the Gentiles' seas, and they went into the countries of the Gadarenes. But as they sailed there, Elu'hym fell asleep, and there was a violent storm, and the wind was very violent, and the waves was raving upon the seas, and the waves them began to rise up, and then the seas became very violent, and the sea water began to come into the ship, and the ship was filling up with water, and his disciples them were afraid because their lives were in jeopardy. And they came to the Elu'hym, and they began to call upon Elu'hym, until he was awake, and they were calling upon Elu'hym, saying, Master, Master Elu'hym, we are all going to perish. Then he woke up, and he arose, and then he stood up upon the bow of the ship, and he rebuked the wind and the waves, and the raging storm. And he rebuked the storm, and the winds and the waves that was upon the waters, and then the winds ceased, and the violent storm was stayed, and then there was a calm great upon the seas. And then he said unto them, Where is your faith? And they being afraid wondered, how he stayed the violent storm, and they were saying one to another, What manner of man is this? Because even the storm has obeyed and even the wind is listening to his command. And even the winds and waves, and the water, and the storm, they too are obeying whom is the Elu'hym. And when they had arrived in the country of the Gadarenes, which was overseas against the sea of the Galilee, and shortly after they anchored the ship, and his disciples them went forth from the ship, and into the country of the Gadarenes. And they came out there many people to meet Elu'hym. And there were many of them who came there who were under the spell of the bar of Jesus, and who came to see Elu'hym. And they witness when Elu'hym cast out the demons from out of the demon-possessed man who was living in the cemetery, and whose abode was amongst the tombs in that city. And there were certain men there who had tried to cast out the demons from out of the man who was possessed by demon there, whom had being possessed by many demons for a long time, and who didn't wear any clothes, and who had being abiding amongst the tombs, because the demon them didn't allow him to live in his own house, but in the cemetery amongst the tombs. When the demons possessed man beheld, whom is the Christ, and he cried out, Master, and then he fell down before Elu'hym, whom is the Elu'hym, and whom is the sovereign King of heaven. And Elu'hym came up to him. And Elu'hym commanded the evil spirits them to come out of him. And the evil spirits them came forth, and they were shouting with loud voices. And they were saying to Elu'hym, What have we to do with thee, Elu'hym, the Most High? We belong to Jesus, and we are God's, and we all belongs to God. And there were some people there who believed in the bar of Jesus, and who believed that Jesus was the Son of God. And there were others whom believed that he was the one, whom is Elu'hym, whom is the Elu'hym, who is the Most High Sovereign One. And they were there amongst his disciples, and they were there amongst the people that were at the cemetery when Elu'hym cast the demons them out of the demon-possessed man. And when the demons them began to beseech Elu'hym not to cast them out, and not to cast them into the wilderness, and also not to cast them in hell for their torment. When Elu'hym had commanded the unclean spirits to come out of this man Jesus. Because many times the people them had caught him, and they kept him in bounds, and within chains and in with fetters. But oftentimes he would break the bands, and the fetters, and he would remove the stakes that was driven into the ground. And many times they would catch him, and they would take him into the wilderness, and they would try to cast out the devils them out of him while they were out there. And then they would leave him out there. And oftentimes they would ask the Roman legion, the Romans armed to capture him, saying, the demon-possessed man, whom was called after Jesus' namesake, and by the name Bar-Jesus, which was the name of the man, and whose name was also named after the name of Yeshua, whom was named after Satan the cursed one, and whom was the man whom was possessed by these demons. And the man with the 1,000 demons, and the man with the name Legion, whom had come back from the wilderness again. And many people would ask him, what is your name? And he would say to them, my name is called Bar-Jesus, so they would call him by the name Bar-Jesus, because he said that his name was called Bar-Jesus. But they at times would call him Legion, and they would also call him by the name, the demon-possessed man, and also by the name Bar-Jesus. Because they said that it took a legion of men or 1,000 men to arrest him, and also because it took 1,000 men from the Romans' army to subdue him, and to capture him. And also because they said that 1,000 evil spirits had entered into him, and also that 1,000 demons had the possession of him. And after they whom had tried many times to perform exorcism upon him but failed, because the evil spirits them wouldn't leave him. And they would ask the demons them in the name of Jesus to come out of him, and to leave him alone, but they still wouldn't leave him. And then they would adjure them by the Most High God, and they would also besought the demons them to leave him in the name of God, but they wouldn't come out of him neither, and no matter what they did they wouldn't come out, nor neither would they leave him alone. But when Elu'hym came there, whom is the sovereign King of heaven, then he commanded them to come out of him, then they came out of him immediately. And when Elu'hym was about to command them to go into his deep abyss, then the demons them cried out, and they asked Elu'hym not to cast them into his abyss, but into the herd of swine. Because they saw that there was a herd of pigs there feeding near by a steep place, and which was near by the mountain, so the demons, them they besought Elu'hym not to make them to suffer by being sent into hell, but that Elu'hym should permit them to go into the pigs, and that he would permit all of them to go into the herd of swine when Elu'hym had cast them out, and that Elu'hym wouldn't send them into Gehenna to suffer there, but that he would let them go into the pigs, and to possess them. So the Elu'hym permitted them, and they left the man, and they went, and they entered into the pigs them, so that they wouldn't have to suffer in the place that was called hell. Then when the devils them come out of the man, and they entered into the herd of swine, then the herd of swine then ran violently from a certain place which was near by the cemetery. And they ran over a steep place, and they fell into a lake, and they began to drown in the waters, and they all began to choke violently in the waters. And when the people them saw it that fed them, they were afraid, and they fled from the pigs them, that were in the lake drowning, then they that fed them, they fled from there. They went and told the owners them, what they saw, and what Elu'hym had done. And then they went to the heads of the city. And then they who sent them told them to go to the chief of the city, and then the news was published abroad, and throughout all the other countries them. So when they who were told about his miracle, then they came out to see what was done, and they came to see Elu'hym, and also the man whose name was called Bar-Jesus, and they found that the demons them was gone out of him. And that the man whose name was called Legion, who 1,000 men from the Romans' army was sent to capture, and whom they had tried their best to save, but they couldn't help him nor saved him. And also whom those people from the religious sect of Jesus had tried to perform their exorcism upon, and when they had tried to cast out the evil spirits from out of him by using the bar of Jesus, or by using the power of the name of Jesus, that they too failed because they couldn't deliver him neither. Then those disciples who believed in Jesus, and that Jesus's name was all powerful, that they found out that neither they nor Jesus couldn't deliver him from the devil nor the demons them, but when Elu'hymn came there, they all witnessed the might, and the holy power of the Almighty, whom was the only one, whom was the Holy One, Sovereign One, that could have cast them out. And now that they were all cast out, by Elu'hymn, and that they were all departed from out of him, and now this man called Bar Jesus was totally delivered. And that he was made whole, and now he was sitting at the feet of Elu'hymn. And he was now clothed in raiment, and now he was in the right state of mind, so they were in awe, and when they saw him they were all afraid. And they were in awe of Elu'hymn. And when they whom had witnessed it told those people who came to see the man whom Elu'hymn had delivered, then they came there and they also were in awe of Elu'hymn, and they all were all glad. And they began to praise the Elu'hymn, and they were all in awe of the odd whom is also called the Elu'hymn. And they were glad when they learned by what means that the Elu'hymn came to save him, and that he is whom is called the Sovereign King of Heaven, and whom was the Most High, whom had empathy and mercy upon this man. And when the Christ had come there they were glad. And because Elu'hymn, whom is Christ, and whom had came there to deliver him from the demons them that had him bound, and now Elu'hymn had saved this man whom was possessed by so many demons, now they were all in awe of Elu'hymn, and then they began to praise whom is also known as the odd. And they began to hallel Elu'hymn when they learned how Elu'hymn had healed him and how Elu'hymn had made him whole. Then a large multitude of people came into the country of the Gadarenes, to see and to ask about the whereabout Elu'hymn. And also this man, whom was delivered by Elu'hymn. And they asked Elu'hymn if he would stay with them. But Elu'hymn departed from there. And also the disciples of the bar of Jesus, because their faith was now shaken, and they were living in great fear, and they fled from there, because they feared for their lives, and fled from the multitude of the people them. Then he and his disciples went back to their ship, and they sailed back across the seas, and they promised them that they would return to the Gadarenes again. Now the man from whom the devils were being exorcised, he began to say to the Elu'hymn, and he asked Elu'hymn if he would let him come with them, but Elu'hymn sent him away, saying to him, you should return to your own house. And you should go and show yourself to your family, and you should tell them how you were delivered, and about all the great things that the Elu'hymn have done for you. So Elu'hymn left from there. And the man went to his family to tell his family about how Elu'hymn had delivered him, and on his way, he began to publish it throughout the whole city about how great Elu'hymn is. And also about all the great things that Elu'hymn had done for him. And it came to pass, that, when Elu'hymn did return again to the Gadarenes again, that all the people them received Elu'hymn gladly when they realized that he is the Elu'hymn, and the holy prophet whom is also called Elu'hymn, and whom is the Holy One whom is called the Christ and also Christ, and because they were all in awe by the odd whom is also called the Elu'hymn. So they waited patiently for Elu'hymn to return. Hallelujah. Thank you, Elu'hymn. Because thou art Elu'hymn. And also the Holy One whom is called the odd, and also because he is the Sovereign King whom is called Elu'hymn. And the light, and whose glory resembles the light of sunlight. Thank you. To be continued, the end.